but it's the system as a whole. They don't want you to get better because then you're not a revenue source, okay? You're a guaranteed customer.
Here is what nobody tells you about getting a diagnosis. They tell you what you have. They give you the prescription, they hand you a pamphlet, and they send you back in the world to do it on your own. My guest today has been inside that healthcare system for years. He's had the doctors, he's followed the protocols, and through that experience, he realized something. The system is built to manage those conditions. It's not built to help a guy who wants to perform at his best after 40. Those are two different things. I'm Zac Armstrong, and this is no hype, just standards. Mark Orvis is the director at Big River Steel that's part of U.S. Steel. He has been there for over a decade, rising through 3 roles such as quality assurance, technical service, and advanced product engineering for one of the most advanced steel operations in our country. His career is built on root cause analysis, continuous improvement, and the idea if your process is not delivering the result you need, you fix the process. Mark is also living with diabetes. And for a long time, the healthcare system was managing his condition the way it manages everyone else. Standard markers, standard advice, and standard results. But Mark does not think in a standard way. He thinks in precision. And when he found a system that finally matched the way his brain works, everything changed. Not because he tried harder, but because the approach got better. Today, we are going to talk about what it is really like to manage diabetes at the executive level and what happens when the standard playbook meets a guy who thinks in data and root cause analysis, and what changes when you stop managing a condition and start optimizing a life. If you're getting something out of this show, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Share it with a guy who needs to hear it. You know who he is. Mark, thanks for being here. And let's get into it. Hey, Mark. So, let's give you the quick version here. Big River, Steel, quality assurance, advanced product engineering. What is your world like? How does it look now?
Well, it's been crazy for about the last 10 or 11 years. We were a greenfield startup. Mm-hmm. So we were a soybean field 11 years ago. And so we've been growing exponentially every year. We've gone from, literally being, when we were there digging our first holes, the farmer was still there collecting his last harvest to, $10 billion in investment in the largest steelmaking facility in North America and 1,700 employees from one. So it's been a crazy decade and a little more for sure. So exhausting is probably the word.
Yeah. What were you?
9.
9.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exhausting, how many hours do you think you pulled there?
Yeah. Well, during startup and construction, you can't count.
Or you don't want to.
Well, you don't want to, but when it's 20-hour days, for weeks on end, easy. 15, sure, 15's a good, an easy day. There's so much to do. It wasn't just building, a manufacturing facility and assembling equipment, assembling buildings, which that was part of it, but it was building a company from ground up.
Right.
We had nothing. Our first meetings were in the conference room of a Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
So
a good one or a bad one?
Bad one.
I'm sure that, though, there's some excitement to when you're building a company, excitement about doing it, maybe not notice the hours or the wear and tear on what's happening. Would you kind of describe it as such? Or
absolutely. It's very exciting. It's very entrepreneurial. That's why when we left, we had built a mill previously about 7 years prior. And, the founder of that mill had left and was starting this one. So we all followed him to go with him and do it again just because of that, because it is super exciting and you can build your own culture and you don't have to worry about coming into a place that's got a broken culture and trying to fix it. You can build it right the first time, those kinds of things. So it was really exciting.
Yeah, I would say from somebody who's had to go into bad cultures, that is by far the hardest thing to go into a company and fix. Is something that's broken and people were down and
I think once it's broken, it's broken.
Yeah, I've definitely been part of rehabilitation for multiple places during my time in the military, and I can say those were the hardest ones because when somebody's already beaten up and down, it's hard to get them back and excited about something.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of excited or like fixing things, quality assurance, what does that actually mean at your level, and what's at stake when things slip at that level?
Well, it's about the repeatability. So it's quality, making sure you're giving a good product out to the customer consistently reliably every time. Material's got to perform the same. You got to get it there on time the same. You know, people who purchase, whether it's steel or anything else, they don't like surprises in supply chain. You know, it's got to be there. It's got to be precise. It's got to be there every time, and it's got to be right every time, because otherwise then you have, you know, just a whole host, a cascade of potential issues from their perspective that, you know, you don't even really know what impact you have on their business with just the slightest. You know, if you say, well, that's not too bad, or, well, it just happened once, it could be catastrophic, you know, in one of their manufacturing facilities.
Yeah, for a business owner or something to where.
Well, even the large ones, you know, even if we're shipping into, you know, a major automotive manufacturer, which we do, okay, and they've got to shut down an entire assembly line in Greenville, South Carolina or something, you know, those consequences and the dollars associated with that add up really quickly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we look at it from a dollar and, you know, perspective like that, but then we don't realize the impact on the human being.
Well, that's true too.
Behind it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that there can make somebody stay up at night for sure. I get on the question with this, just because you said it, how bad was the last year during the whole tariffs up and down?
You know what? The tariffs is
I feel like a place in industry like steel that had been.
For domestic companies, it was good. It wasn't as good as the tariffs during the last Trump administration. The steel market just took off. It was like the best year we've ever had in the history of steel in 2021. Mm-hmm. This year was good. Or last year was good. You know, a lot of the American manufacturers that were assembling in Canada or Mexico and not just Americans, foreign national companies that were assembling in either one of those countries that then wanted to ship the material or the final product back to the United States have been scrambling to resource domestically. So to that extent, the tariffs have been successful for sure.
Yeah. For you, though, it didn't put a big constraint on the logistics standpoint?
No. It's just, it was a business opportunity.
And so with the quality assurance, how would you kind of describe the way you solve problems?
So I started in the steel industry as an operator. So I was a guy on the line and sort of worked my way up into the roles I am now. So I still think about things through that lens. And that means if a piece of equipment or a machine breaks down or something's happening to your product at the end of your line, you start working your way backwards and find out where it's broke. Okay, it's good here, it's good here, it's good here, it's good here and here. Okay, right here in the middle is where whatever's going wrong is going wrong. And so it's still that. So I do that now. I just do it for, you know, kind of plant wide, and we do it. My group does it for customers too. So if we go into a customer and they're having an issue, it may not be our quality issues. It might be them. And then we go into their facilities and help them try to do root cause analysis, 5 whys, fishbone diagrams, those kinds of things, to get to the root cause and fix the problems.
So fair to say you're a process type of guy.
Yeah, definitely a process type of guy.
So for you, a process is not only the way you, and I know this because I know you a little bit, but the process is how you live your life. But at work, it's how you can help people solve problems. It's through a process, not actual like the end result, but how you get to it. Like,
if you don't have a process, you're out of control.
Right.
It's either statistically out of control or actually out of control. And once you're statistically out of control, it's a matter of time before you're actually out of control. And so it's, numbers don't lie, trends don't lie. So you got to have processes, you got to have controls, you got to have things in place. You have to have plans. They have to be written, they have to be audited, they have to be managed actively. I've kind of taken the approach on my health journey the same way. Probably what you want to talk about in a minute, but definitely process focused, because otherwise you're just sort of floating around.
Yeah, without I've referenced it I think once or twice already on the show, but I'm an Alabama fan because I grew up in the South. But Nick Saban is somebody who I admire as a coach, and from a leadership standpoint, not necessarily because I was a fan of the team. But he always focused on the process. He never focused on like the game on Saturday. He always focused on from how you did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? If you treated those days all the same for no matter what the game was, the game on Saturday was treated like everything else. And when you got there, the process was in place and you were ready to play. And I think that's the way you live life. The way I live life, that's the way I do my program. And when you think in that way, it helps with that end result like you're talking about.
Yeah.
It helps you get to that point to where you're coming up with the problems of the fishbone diagrams and helping people solve their problems because the process gets you there.
Yep.
Too often when we focus on the beginning or the end results, it's all you focus on and you lose sight of the actual process.
Mm-hmm.
And see that root cause analysis is your job. When something goes wrong, what's the first thing you do?
Well, the first thing is you got to understand what the problem is. Okay, I'll use the customer example. You get the angry phone call or the panicked phone call. This is going crazy. We don't know why. It's got to be the material. So the first thing is you just sort of have to calm down, take a deep breath, step back, look at what the situation is, and then you just start digging backwards. You look at the controls that went into, let's say, we do think it's something with one of our products, as an example. We go back and look, okay, when we made it that day, what were the conditions that we were operating under? We look at weather even, we look at atmospheric conditions, we look at, was there unplanned maintenance? Did something break? We go back and we look at everything and then start triangulating ourselves down and tightening the sort of like concentric circles till we get to where what we believe are maybe a couple possibilities of root cause, and then finally identify that and find out why it happened. And then once you fix the immediate problem, then you go through and you look at how do you make it not happen again, and maybe that's changing your processes, maybe that's changing something else. That's kind of the postmortem of after the fact. So
sure. And talking about diagnosis, something, coming up with problems like I know you had to challenge yourself in life, being diagnosed with diabetes. When you first diagnosed, what was that moment like for you?
Well, it's interesting. It was kind of gradual, and not just diabetes. I was fat, dude, too. I mean, I don't even know what my top weight was, because there were times when I get on the scale, the home scale, and it wouldn't give me a number. And I think most home scales, I think that's right around 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the first weight that I recall standing on the scale and getting a number was like 297 pounds. And that's right around the time that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I never did have to take insulin, but I was probably close, because my A1C, first time I ever really had a blood marker that I paid attention to was A1C. And if my memory serves, something like a 10.2 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember going to my family practitioner prior to that and doing the basic blood panels they did, pricking your finger or looking for your glucose, that kind of stuff, and saying, hey, you're creeping up there. Finally, I do remember the day when he said, well, congratulations, you're a diabetic. I said, the kind that has to take insulin? No. I said, okay, I'm all right. And it was funny. I just thought, I walked out of there thinking, well, at least I don't have to take insulin. And I just kept trucking on my way. And I walked out of there with a couple of prescriptions, metformin and something else. And, then had to go through processes of tweaking those. And then the next thing I've got high blood pressure, and I'm on multiple medications for that. And then, thyroid and hormones are out of whack. And they start throwing darts at the wall, putting medications on that. It was all sort of just
cumulative.
Yeah. And I got there very slowly. It's not like I woke up like that, but I got there very slowly, but it's like putting a frog in water. I didn't really realize I was buoyantly alive until I got there.
Yeah. And so I think for me, like talking about boiling, someone that makes my blood actually boil with what you said. And we'll get into, I want to ask those questions first, but just for, the audience's understanding, for those who don't know, when you say 10.2, your A1C, can you explain how that kind of works so everybody understands what?
Yeah. So the A1C is basically your 3-month average of your blood sugar.
Right.
So a pinprick is just a single moment in time, and it'll tell you something, but it really doesn't tell you much. If you just pounded a 6-pack of Mountain Dews before you come in there, your blood sugar is it's gonna be spiked. So it's a more
BAC.
Yeah. So that's a more, I would say, accurate result of your true nature of your blood sugar. Unfortunately, it's probably the least important one of the least important blood markers when it comes to determine if you're diabetes.
Sure.
And fasting insulin's the real number, and no doctors prescribe that or call for those.
Right. And so when you say 10.2, like where is that on the scale for somebody who doesn't understand like where that means?
So
where does diabetes usually start?
So most doctors will tell you as long as you're at around 5,
yep,
you're not diabetic. I don't believe that's true personally. I think you got to be below 5. But if you're in a 5-6 range, they'll say you're okay. If you're getting close to the 6 and maybe a little above, they'll start calling you pre-diabetic, which I think is another made-up term. But so 10 is like off the charts. It's like, I was headed towards needing, insulin injection.
Right. And I think what makes, I don't think I'm 1,000% sure I know what makes my blood boil is they just threw medicine, and not even like, just medicine. They're throwing a bunch of medicine to see what works. So one, if you're, as an engineer, you understand troubleshooting. If you throw a bunch of stuff, you don't know what works until you start taking away. You
don't know the interactions.
None of it.
Yeah.
So one that makes me, it's indicative of our medical system. It's all reactionary. It's not preventative, and they just wait for the diagnosis and they give it, and then they just throw medicine at it.
They do. And when you get one blood sample, let's say you go into your doctor once a year and he runs whatever blood tests he runs, and you get whatever results you get. And let's say he's calling you normal. And of course, normal in the scope of the American population is not normal because we're all fat and obese and diabetic and sick. Okay. So I don't want to be that kind of normal anymore. Okay. I was a poster child for that kind of normal for a long time. But see you in a year. Let's say you're normal. Okay, you're good to go. We'll see you in a year. Okay, well, in no other world other than allopathic medicine do you take one data point on one day and say the entire system is good.
And here's what I know the answer to this. What kind of nutrition did he tell you to start following plan? Well, what kind of exercise regimen did he?
Well, there was no exercise recommended. I think he talked about calories. I think he talked about, he probably did mention cut back on the Cokes and things like that if I'm eating that, but not a whole lot of advice. It was mainly just, here's some pills you got to take.
Exactly. And people don't understand too, there's always side effects with those pills too. Just because the doctor says, here, take this for this doesn't mean that it's not indicative that it's going to have causation of other things.
He certainly didn't tell me it's reversible.
Yeah.
And if I lost weight, I could go away.
And it's absolutely, it's troubling to hear it. Like, lose weight, do this, and you can reverse it. You can go into remission on your diabetes.
Yep.
Right. That is a path, and not even like one that's even that time consuming. We can get into it more, but just right now while we're on it, how long did it take you to reverse that?
So
once you got on it, once you said, "Hey, I'm sorry."
So once I got on it, and it was May of 24 is when I really started. It was a gradual start, but it probably took me 10 months to get down enough weight where my high blood pressure was starting to normalize, and I'd say within a calendar year, I was off those diabetes medicine.
What's amazing is that would have been that calendar year that you would have to see the doctor, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Hey, let's see if you can make some improvements. Let's see you in 3 months, not a year, or in 6 months, right?
Yep.
It's heartbreaking to hear those kind of things, especially today where we have another medication that doctors love to prescribe, and that's GLP.
Yeah.
And the people that don't know the adverse effects of it is just, does it lose weight? Yes, of course it does. But does it lose just fat?
No. When you're losing weight fast, whether you're on GLP-1s or not, if you're losing weight fast, you're not just losing.
No.
You're not just losing fat. And that's one of my regrets. I didn't hook up with you and start strength training until a year into my journey. So, there was significant muscle loss that
people don't understand
took place as well too.
Like my personal opinion, and I tell all my clients this, and every client understands this, like my two biggest things for longevity that my personal opinion is not just a longer life, but a quality life is lean muscle mass and VO2 max.
Yep.
VO2 max, obviously measurement in your cardiovascular system, but lean muscle mass only comes for strength training. And those things are given quality life, and that GLP-1, it takes away from people. And I didn't realize, because, I had never been a patient of GLP, but every client who's come on with me has gotten off GLP. I think the detrimental thing I've seen is it took 6 to 8 weeks out of every client that came on that got off of it for it to dissipate out of their system.
Sure, everything's got a half-life, for sure.
6 to 8 weeks was just astounding to me. And the worst condition that it gave to every client was, I would say energy, but the problem was it's hard to tell because of insomnia that it created. And obviously that'll have a factor on energy, but 6 weeks of insomnia.
Well, the worst part about whether it's GLP-1s or just losing weight loss from starvation, and if you're a diabetic, muscle is the number one organ that processes sugar.
Metabolism.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so talking about managing diabetes, while running a major operation like you were, how hard was that?
It was, in hindsight, it was very hard. I didn't even realize it. I felt terrible all the time. I was tired all the time. I was sore all the time. My joints ached, my muscles ached. And I didn't realize it was just life. It was just is. I woke up feeling like crap. I went to bed feeling like crap, and I felt like crap in between. And so I didn't know any different, really.
What was the hardest part of that for you?
I think the hardest part was, I would say within the couple years prior to me getting started, kind of my peer group, and I'm 58 now, so I don't know. I'm suspecting I probably skew maybe on the older side of your clients. I don't know that. Okay.
Not even close.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we got about 10 over 70.
Okay, that's great. Well, in my basic age range, the example is I use like my high school graduating class Facebook page. Mm-hmm. The post always used to be, oh, so-and-so got married. Oh, we had kids. Oh, we had grandkids. Now it's, oh, so-and-so died. Oh, so-and-so had a stroke. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point now where the only time anybody posts is when another classmate, has died. Mm-hmm. And then I had coworkers roughly my age who have had heart attacks and died, one on the way home from work, one getting an oil change at a dealership on the way into work. And, and my wife was nervous about my weight and my health and was talking to me about it a lot. And I finally got to the point where I didn't want to, make her a widow prematurely. Yeah. And, it took me a long time to get to that. But back to your question about when I was working, I just didn't even know it. It was who I was.
Yeah, you just live life to what you can.
Yeah.
As we human beings, the human condition does. We just, whatever you're given, you kind of sometimes accept. And we're bad about that.
That's right.
Like we were talking before the show, accepting what a doctor says. They're accepting what's being told because they must know what they're talking about.
Yep, that's right.
And we just accept things sometimes when we should push back.
Yep.
And that's funny you mentioned that about Facebook, and because I'm not a big social media person, which is kind of weird, which most people probably wouldn't believe, but I actually don't get on social media that much. But whenever I do with classmates from high school, what's funny is I see a lot of them posting. I'm about a little over 10 years younger than you, but I see people talking about GLPs or which one to take or this. I'm like, oh my God. You're at an age where this shouldn't be a question right now.
Yeah.
But you already talked about how it affects your energy, and we've already kind of went into how the medical system worked for you. But here's a great question for you. As an engineer, a process guy, a quality guy, if you had to look at that healthcare team and audit the process in which they did for you, what would your report say?
Well, they clearly don't have a control plan in place or a PFEMA in place.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. So basically those are written documents where you literally write down every input and output of your process, your control plan. Okay. And what are the various types of, in our case, commodities, if you're a human, food, drugs, atmosphere, what's going in and what's going out, all right? And then the FEMA basically analyzes risks, okay? And you numerically score risks. And so if you've identified a risk in your process, then you have to go through a process to, how are you going to mitigate those risks? How are you going to, you may not be able to get rid of that risk, but how are you going to deal with it when it happens? Well, none of that goes on in your traditional healthcare practice, okay? They just bebop in, they ask you the same kind of questions they've asked the 10 people before you, and the same people that were there before you have the same problems you have. and you keep coming back and you keep coming back and they keep coming back and nothing ever gets fixed. Nothing ever improves. For acute care, if you get hit by a bus or struck by lightning, we're really good in our society at taking care of that.
What's funny, we had a doctor on not too long ago. He said the exact same thing.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not those without worries, but the acute injury, exactly.
Sure.
That to a T.
But we suck at chronic care. And to me, as I got into this, it's because they don't, I don't necessarily say, I'm saying it's an individual medical practitioner.
Well, I don't think you're like this.
But it's the system
As a whole.
They don't want you to get better because then you're not a revenue source, okay? You're a guaranteed customer. And so...
But you look at it like the Matrix where you're plugged into the system, right? It's the same thing, except they're not drawing your energy, they're drawing your money.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So chronic care, to me, and this is kind of how I approach it, whether it's, in my case, diabetes and obesity, there's some others. You could even take that out.
Pain management,
even types of cancer or Alzheimer's or, Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, more and more people say now it's metabolism.
That's a very dear one to my heart because my grandmother, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's the way I look at it as chronic care is it's an engineering problem to be solved, not a medical problem to be treated.
Yeah. And they don't, and it's not just the doctor's fault, it's the system that's in place too, right?
Yeah.
And when, I think one of the reasons I was one of the most excited to get you on is because you're maybe the most knowledgeable client I have. And I have multiple doctors as clients too, but the amount of knowledge you have in this space is unreal because, like many people who are wavelengths of your engineering, they want to diagnose the issue and get to the root problem. And because I'm a fan, I call me a fan, and what a fan is fanatical, right? And I would call you that about longevity now and how to get to the secondary levels of medical practice and what's actually beneficial. So knowing that, when did you realize the standard approach of managing your diagnosis was not something that was helping manage all your issues? And what was the thing that led you to start that initial change in what was you said May of 24, right?
Yeah, it was. So there's a couple things going on. I was at my worst at feeling terrible, okay? And I was starting to think about, well, what can I do? What are my kind of first steps? And it was social media, some podcasters like Dr. Berg, Dr. Ken Berry, things like that. It was a ketogenic type diets. And I was listening to that. I was starting to listen to some things about some intermittent fasting and things like that. And so, the first thing I did is I just stopped eating bread. That's it. Nothing else changed. And in 2 weeks, I lost 10 pounds by just taking the buns off my Burger King, And so I didn't go strict elimination diet right away. It was one thing. I took away the bread, then I started cutting out some sugars, and one step at a time. And I'd say I was probably 4 months into it, okay? And I had probably lost 25 pounds by then, something like that, just by modest changes in my diet, not going hungry, not doing anything like that, when I realized, shit, I already feel better.
Yeah.
Nobody told me to do this. I never had a doctor say you can still go to Whataburger, just don't eat the bread.
Yeah.
And so it made me start thinking, well, what else are they telling me? In the meantime, though, Zach, I was going down the rabbit hole with, some of them were bro science guys, but, a lot of them were legit doctors, Peter Attia, Huberman, Ben Bickman, all of those kinds of guys. And, one step at a time. And I started applying some of those things they're saying and reading up on it and studying it, trying these things on my own. And I don't think there was a eureka moment, but, maybe one of the moments was I was maybe 40 pounds into it, and I went back to my endocrinologist, who I hadn't seen in a while since I lost all that weight for sure. And she's a very smart doctor, okay, but very traditional. And, her first reaction wasn't, oh, wow, you look great, or what are you doing to lose weight? Are you sick? And it's like something had to be wrong. I couldn't have lost that amount of weight, And I guess she wouldn't be surprised that I had lost all that weight because she thought I was still on all the drugs she was giving me too, right? So I don't know that I had a singular eureka moment, but it was kind of gradual.
So obviously a lot of frustration there. He started looking at things differently there. When did you actually start questioning all the stuff the doctor said? And like, what did you start questioning about what they said or the medications?
So, I guess I was reading a lot of Dr. Mark Hyman, and a lot of the things he was talking about really struck me. Your food, okay, and if food is medicine, and
people discount that for sure.
100%.
They
100%. I did.
Yeah. The first question was funny. So many times people will ask me, "What's the best supplement to take?" Well, let's worry about what you're eating first.
Yep.
That'll fix more than the sleep. The sleep and the food will fix more than any supplement will off the bat.
Yeah.
The supplements adds to those.
Like they say, you can't out exercise a bad diet, and you can't out supplement one either.
Right. And sorry for cutting you off there, but you were saying.
I forgot where.
So we started questioning their medications.
Yeah, questioning the medications and why, when I was getting better, like for instance, when I went back and I lost weight and the blood tests, even the ones they gave me, they still didn't give me a fasted insulin at that point. Okay, I didn't realize I could go out and get one myself. But my A1C was like down to like 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you still got to take it. We can taper your dose back a little bit, but you're always going to have to take this.
Yep.
Why?
See why?
If I was 6 and hadn't ever been on the medicine, you would have told me I was normal. I'll see you in a year. So I think there was those kinds of things, and it was a series of those kinds of things where I'm like, look, this is on me. I can figure this out. There's enough information out there now. There's enough people out there doing this now. The longevity space, the age reversal, expanding that delta between your chronological age and your biological age.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at a good time in history now where more and more people are accepting that and it's growing.
And it's great too. And I love that people do that. And, a lot of people you mentioned are great in pushing back on those. And we talked about it right before the podcast, right? Before we started this is, part of the human condition is we hear stuff, we hear things we like, and then we regurgitate it either as fact or as if it's, our own idea. And doctors are no different. Usually doctors are pretty smart individuals, but they do the same thing. They'll hear it, they regurgitate it, and they think it's fact. Or they're worried about themselves, right? As we are as human. If I take them off the medication, something happens to them, what happens to me?
Yeah.
I'll open myself up for liability. So sometimes like that, they're not going to remove medication.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to potentially get sued.
Well, while you were talking, I was thinking about this, and I don't know if we talked about this earlier or maybe it was even since we've been here, but, when you get a blood test and you get one bad marker, that's all they test. And I think that really struck me too. In my world, if we get, we know what the chemistry is of the steel. We expect a certain set of mechanical properties. And if we test it and it's way out of whack one way or the other,
causations,
we assume it's probably a bad test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we'll test it again.
Mm-hmm.
There's no testing again. There's no duplication. There's no redundancies of tests. It's a singular data point. It's a snapshot in a period of time. And they're basically defining your whole life for you on one data point. And you don't do that in the real world.
No. It's Six Sigma, right?
Yes. And so in my world, you need reams of data, multiple data, taken continuously to make sure you're trending in the right direction. You can't determine trends testing once a year.
Right. And so you got all of this point, and then you saw you connected with me on the program. What was your first reaction?
Well, I remember, so I know where I was too. I don't remember the exact ad I saw. It was, on LinkedIn, but I was at the infusion clinic. I was getting NAD plus and glutathione. I get that, okay, once a month. And so I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and you popped up. And I don't remember which one it was, but I know you talked about blood work. Mm-hmm. You talked about markers. You weren't just talking about getting in a gym and throwing around a bunch of weights, which at the time, I'm not sure. It appeals to me now, but at the time, I don't think that was what I was looking for. I knew I was losing muscle. I had started to build a sort of mini sort of exercise equipment and gym, assemble that at the house. But I didn't know what I was doing, certainly. And I wasn't about to go to a gym somewhere. A, I don't think I'd have the time. And B, I just couldn't see myself doing that. Maybe now I could do that. But certainly at the time, I wouldn't have walked in to a gym just cold, right? And so I don't know. I think you're talking about the precision, talking about the blood work, talking about data. I think data is the word you said in that several times. And that appealed to me. And then it's funny. So I texted you while I was sitting there in the chair. And I'm on the way home and you called me.
Yeah.
And so you didn't give me a chance to second guess myself, which was good.
Yeah. That's, I don't think people understand the amount of hours I work.
Yeah.
You do.
I do.
But I'm always almost on it. What was the moment where you thought like, I think I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to try to do this. I mean, obviously we had a conversation. Was it in that conversation or did something click that I said, or what do you think?
I think it was both. I think I said, okay, this is a guy I can work with. I appreciated your background. Clearly you're, fit and you've been fit for a while. And so you know what you're talking about. It's a subject matter expert. I don't pretend to be a subject matter expert on everything. I can't go program AI. I'm not going to try to do that. I wouldn't know where to start.
I can do it itself now.
Yeah, you can do it yourself.
We're about this close to Skynet.
I'm not a thoracic heart surgeon. I would never attempt that. And to me, this is no different. And I just, after talking to you, I felt like, okay, I think this might be a fit personality-wise, and we seem to agree on a lot of things and, different lives, but sort of had similar approaches.
Yeah, I would agree. Like definitely a data-centric focus and not a gym bro type stuff, right? Very analytical from my perspective and yours. What went for those first few weeks? What changed for you there?
I'd say the first few weeks, the first few weeks that changed, and the thing that I was surprised about, and honestly, one of the things I was most skeptical about was the whole online thing. Because I was falsely laboring under the idea you had to have some guy next to you here screaming at you or whatever. But I didn't know how effective the app, plugging in all your wearables and stuff in there, and, your level of follow-up, I felt like you were there all the time. And, okay, I can tell by your heart rate, or I can tell by your reps, why don't you try this? And I could start to see some differences. And I would say maybe by the end of the second, third-ish week, I started to feel stronger. I started to push myself with maybe fewer reps, higher weight, which I hadn't done before. I'd just sit there and lift the same weight 40 times or something like that. Because I didn't know what I was doing, right?
That's okay, yeah. And I think and I will always remember you because you explain to people what your workout system is at home.
So it's called a smart gym. It's the Speediance Gym Monster.
And I had to go look this thing up. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so it's electric. It's a cable workout, but it's electric motors, and so it can simulate eccentric, decentric chains. I really love it. And
what's funny is I had not known about it. I kind of, when you explained it on the phone, I kind of knew, and then I went and looked it up, and I was able to create a program based. Yeah. But it's funny. Like 2 weeks later, there was another guy. Same thing. No worries, man. Already know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But so I think what the thing is to point out there, you had never really worked out, at least not in a long time. You're coming back into it. You didn't have what traditional people would think as far as gym equipment at home.
I didn't have any.
Right? And so you just had the Speediance, which if somebody can go look it up, it's not what I would call it would be like a more advanced Bowflex where it does multiple tasks within a certain thing, right? And you were still able to get it done.
Yeah.
Right, in a high amount of fashion and start seeing results.
Well, and they not turning in advertisement, but they do have like video trainers on there so you can watch that. And so that's what then I was able to translate that with you because, on your app, you've got actual video of you showing the correct movements and things like that. And so I got that, and I got the sense of community. And, and be honest with you, I didn't think that I would, probably accountability is the right word, but I know you're watching.
Yeah, a lot.
And so I'm surprised that a guy I'd never met in person that lived 2,000 miles away, I would feel that sort of teamwork.
Oh yeah,
with.
It's amazing. And so we had the doctor that was on the podcast a couple of episodes ago. We lived 4 miles apart.
Mm-hmm.
I met him twice. One time was when we did the podcast.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
and it works. And we live 4 miles apart,
Yeah.
right? And it's crazy. We've only seen each other twice. When you had someone build this protocol and using the data as an analytical engineer person, how did you kind of perceive this as like, oh, this is definitely up my alley. This is definitely something like I can see being advantageous to a mind like mine.
The strength training portion?
Yeah, it's both the strength training and nutrition, right? As well as the data feeding into the app.
Well, so the data feeding to the app really appealed to me because I really tried to centralize data. I went over the deep end with variables. There's a period of time. I got the Whoop on today, and I usually use the Hume, but Whoop's got some new AI that I'm sure you're aware of that I'm playing around with, that I would wear all three at the same time just to compare their data. And got all the body pods just to compare the data, then did all the DEXA scans and all the tests to compare those accuracies to find out. Well, going through the app and having that component with it sort of just played right into what I was all about anyway. And I can track it. I can go back and I can see what I did. I can see, okay, in October 24th, this is what I did. These were my reps. This is what I ate. That's super helpful for me. I pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize is once you start, you do pay attention to those things. Like at the end of the day, now you don't. It works for everybody. I'll tell them in the beginning. They don't believe me. I'm like, dude, in 4 months, you're not gonna be bothering me like you were in the beginning, because you're gonna see something that says protein on a grocery aisle.
Yeah.
You're gonna pick it up. You're gonna turn around and you look at it, but it's got 50 grams of carbs in it.
Yeah.
Protein. This isn't protein. And you're gonna be like, and then you set it down and you go, oh crap, that's how it told me I was gonna do this. And you're gonna be doing it because everybody does it.
Totally.
100%.
Totally.
They don't realize it.
Expert label readers.
Yeah. Beyond the diabetes, what else shifted for you in here with the program? You got your diabetes down to 4.5. That's not even pre-diabetic levels for those who don't know, right? It's not even pre-diabetic level. Full remission. Besides getting past that, what improved once you started all this with the energy, the sleep, the focus, all those areas?
Yeah, so I lost 110 pounds through the whole process. Since I've been with you, and I got probably a little too low because I lost that weight. And since I've been with you, I probably put on, I don't know, 5 or 6 pounds. And based on all my results, it's muscle, it's not fat.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely where we're looking at the fact that body recomposition, right? Like I can look at you now and I can look at your arms, right? You got a vein popping out, you got muscularity on your arm. That I wouldn't have said the same thing, back when we first started, which is coming up on a year now. How do you doctors react now when they see your numbers?
So one of them is really happy for me, really good. He's on his own journey. Mm-hmm. Most of them, and I don't go to very many doctors anymore. I found a good one who's all on board, but the previous ones, I've pretty much fired them all. And I fired my endocrinologist. I fired the family medicine guy, because they don't understand. They don't want me to go off their medicine, and maybe they're worried about getting sued or something like that. They don't approve of ketogenic carnivore. They just don't know. And so I've sort of given up. Like I said, if I get hit by a bus or struck by lightning, I'll go to the hospital. But outside of that, he's not a functional health guy, but he's actually a internal medicine guy and a toxicologist, which for anybody who's looking for the perfect longevity doctor, an internal medicine toxicologist. That's the ticket.
That's the blend.
That's the blend.
And I know I've heard you say this before. And I laughed the first time I think I heard you say it. How many hours of nutritional training do doctors get?
Oh, most of them like less than a day.
Yeah.
In their entire medical school.
And how long is usually medical school?
Right. Years and years and years.
Oh, 1 day, right?
Yeah.
And that's where when you go and you listen to the doctor, and I think we're at an epidemic too, where you actually see a lot of overweight doctors, mid 40s and 50s.
For sure.
Yeah, because they do the same thing. They work hours. They have patients. They have the stress, right? They have all the same things.
That endocrinologist was criticizing my diet, telling me it's how dangerous it is. And I'm like, well, look at you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be crass about it, but you're the last person I'm going to take dietary advice from.
What's more dangerous, being 100 pounds overweight or being a certain macro level you're eating, right?
Yeah.
And this is a almost rhetorical question. but how much have people around you at work and home noticed? And I'm not going to say from the physical standpoint, because that's a very easy answer. Like, obviously you've lost enough weight. It's not invisible. What would you notice is some of the things that they actually say to you, what they notice differently?
Well, yeah. I just touch on the weight really quick. I couldn't get first it was, are you sick? Are you sick? Are you sick? And then I think some of that, there was some sort of, when they realized I wasn't sick and what I was doing, you know, it kind of took them aback. They're like, I think I don't want to say it scares people, but it's kind of off-putting because it can be jarring for if you've never tried it. You know, all the working out 5 or 6 days a week, eating right, controlling what you eat. But back to your original question, I do think I'm able to focus more. I know my wife tells me that I need to calm down. You know, I'm constantly moving. I have energy again like I used to. I'm not just laying on the sofa, housing a tube of Pringles, you know, like I used to do, you know. So she can definitely point it out. My family can notice the difference in me and my attitude. I think that I've got more time for my family. I've got more in time for my people on my team. At least I hope I do.
Yeah.
And I think I'm more focused. You know, in the time that I do have in the various aspects of my life, it's not consumed with feeling bad. I can actually focus on my task at hand.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to be. You know, I used to be pretty driven and focused and kind of singular in thought, and then go on to the next thing and then go on to the next thing. And, you know, brain fog, I think people have noticed I'm
clear.
Yeah, it's definitely clear.
More high function.
Yeah.
You're already a high function individual, and then when you let loose those constraints, people don't really understand.
And it's just the start too. It's just the start.
Yeah, and it's great hearing when you know your age and your that's the way you look at it. Just the start, all of that. I think a great question here to kind of start the ending this on for the last segment is if you could talk to the old version of yourself and like sit down and have a little conversation with them, what would you advise them? What would you tell them?
I would say to myself, that's a tough question, but I think the gist of it would be, you're going to be 58, or in my case, when I was 55, faster than you think. So it seems like I went from 30 to 55 in about a year and a half. Okay. But the reality is I didn't go from 30 to 55. I went from probably from like 30 to 65, you know, biologically in that amount of time. And that you're going to miss out on so much, and you're going to feel terrible. You won't know it until it happens. It's so hard to get it back. And it's, you know, I've been able to accomplish things, but it's not easy. It's still not easy. I would tell myself, don't let yourself get there in the first place. It's a lot easier to maintain something than it's trying to repair decades of damage.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I'm still doing. Despite whatever accomplishments I might have achieved in this realm, I'm still repairing damage.
Yeah. And I like to ask this. Do you know what your age actually got to at any point?
Yeah. So I was a hair over 65.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you started out?
Yeah.
You were around, 56, 57?
I was 55 when I took that mark.
55?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it today?
45.2.
Look at that.
And so my goal is to increase that delta. So when I was 55, I was probably top 5% unhealthiest guys in the country.
Yep.
When I'm 60, I want to be top 5% healthiest. So my goal was to get that down to like 40 or below metabolically.
I just want to say like that, how inspirational people can need to understand that is. You went from a guy who was sitting on the doorstep, probably near 4 or 5 year death, right? Or at least
probably not even that long.
Right. And you were 55 years old and you started to change. And not even at 55 did you start the change, right? It took you a little bit. You went from being 10 years over your age, and then a matter of less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Than 2 years. You are now 13 years younger than your actual age. Like that's amazing, and it's inspirational. It's inspiring to me. It's inspiring to me, and that's why I love what I do. All right, so how I usually end this is I'm gonna ask rapid questions, 10 questions. The whole point of it is no thought process behind it.
Okay.
First thing that comes to mind, no answer, no explanations, just answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Production floor or corner office?
Production floor.
Yeah, because it's a little meaningful, right? I know what you mean there. Harder quality problem, the still or the body?
Body.
All right. This one's a hard question for me because I have feelings on this. Bad data or no data?
Bad data.
Yeah, every time, right?
Yeah.
It's worse. Makes you make decisions that are hard to deal with. Standard diabetes playbook in one word.
Maintain.
Yeah. One thing your doctor never checked.
Fasting insulin.
Okay. What breaks first when a high performer starts paying attention?
Focus.
Yeah. Your body, same quality audit as your production on, would it have passed 2 years ago?
No. I've had multiple findings.
Would it pass now?
Yeah, I think I would pass. I think maybe I might have a couple minor nonconformances, but no majors.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that. Always still improvement, right? That Six Sigma, 99.9 percentile, right?
Yeah.
Biggest lie men tell themselves about managing a chronic condition.
Say that again, sorry.
Biggest lie men tell themselves about managing a chronic condition.
That you can't do it.
Yeah. That you need the medicine or the... Someone who just got diagnosed, whether it's diabetes or anything like that, who's sitting in a parking lot right now listening to this, what do they need to hear?
Put down the Whopper in your hand.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. Just small things first. It can be reversed. It can be reversed easy. Like I said, I just stopped eating bread.
Yeah.
And that's what started my journey, is just don't eat a slice of bread.
Yeah. And now you got a 20-year difference on your age.
Yeah.
And that's impressive.
Yeah.
And then the last one, same diagnosis, different standards. What does that mean to you now?
Same diagnosis, different standards.
Yeah. What does that mean to you now?
Phrase that a little bit. I know.
Yeah. So let's just put it this way then. I'm going to ask this in a different way. Given everything that you've done now and you look back, because I know this is going to be hard for you to answer, what are you most proud of?
I would say, I hope what I'm most proud of, and I hope it's true, is alleviating stress from my wife's life, that she was going to find me laid out in the front yard from trying to cut grass. It's as simple as that.
And I'm going to do you a little better because I know you a little bit better.
Okay.
Then, you're a very good leader. You lead a lot of people, right? And you have effect on them. And I want to say, and I know this to be a factual information too, that you set an example for a lot of the people that have worked for you to help change their lives. And I know that to be factual.
Okay.
In fact, and I think that's something you should be proud of, because you're not just changing your life. You've had effect on other people's life, not even knowing it most likely.
Well, I hope I can. It's part of the reason why I came out to do this.
Yeah.
You know, the third part of my life, the third third of my life, you know.
Let's start.
Yeah. I'd like to, you know, I'd like to be able to help people. Look, if I could do it, anybody can do it.
I agree. Well, I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Mark, thank you for this. And not just for being here, but for being honest about what it actually looks like to live with this and to fight for something better than what the system was giving you. And here's what I want you to walk away with. Mark had already had the diagnosis. He had already had the doctors. He was already engaged with the system. And through that experience, he realized the system manages conditions. It is not optimized for your life. When he found a methodology that matched the way he actually thought, that's when everything changed. Not the diagnosis, but the standard. He stopped settling for management and started demanding precision. In his body, it responded. And when he found that methodology that matched the way he thinks, everything changed. Not the diagnosis, the standard. He stopped settling for the standard management and started demanding precision. And his body responded. That is not aging. That is refusing to not rot. If you are sitting there right now with a diagnosis or with a condition, with a doctor who tells you you are fine when you know you're not fine, this episode was for you. The answer is not trying to try harder. The answer is to demand a better system. Your kids don't want your money. They want you to play with them. And you cannot do that running around with a process that will fail you on your own quality audit. If this hit home, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Share this with the guy who needs to hear it. the guy who has had the diagnosis and is still being told he is fine. You know who he is. Send him this episode. And remember, you cannot lead others if you're running on empty. But it starts with you leading yourself. Empower your body and invest in yourself. I'm Zac Armstrong. See you next week.